All right, guys, welcome and good evening. So please go ahead and drop a message on Discord and on WhatsApp as well, so that the others get a reminder and join this session. We already have Will on the call. So hello, Will. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
So as not, yeah, I can hear you. So as not to take much time, I will let Will start off with, because I believe we have a lot of things. Thank you.
All right. So I hope you guys have been able to gone through the source code I said yesterday. But if not, it's fine. Um, we're just gonna do like a little bit of coding today. And I'm gonna be coding a little bit faster. And the reason for that is just to ensure that the reason for that is just to ensure that um, we be able to meet up the time that we have, right? So what I'm going to be doing is I won't be writing the code live. I'll be copying from the previous one. However, I'm going to be explaining things and how they work, right? So that's how we are going to do it. So yeah. So I'm going to comment on some files here, and when it's time to make use of them, I'm going to comment on them so you guys can see what's happening. So okay, I think I'll just be using it on the new file, right? There's some code you guys can see. You don't have to. I will explain it just briefly, so you guys don't have to worry too much about it, right? So let's start with the project, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is we need our .html, right? This signifies that we are working on an HTML page. We need our default meta tags, right? So let's copy this one and let's end things here. And we are going to get our body as well. And yeah, and we are going to close our body with this. Right. So this is how our website is going to look by default. So I'm going to open this in the browser. And once we make some couple of changes, we are going to um, hop over to the browser to like check it out, right? All right. So next, I'm going to zoom out the code um, so you guys have a better view, because I know some of you kept complaining about the whole view and stuff like that. So I'm going to make it bigger. All right. So first things first, let's look at the head section. So if we look at our template, we need several type of fonts, and in order to have that, we can get them from Google Fonts and all that stuff. I've shown you guys how to do that before, but basically, if
Hello,
we go
Will.
to fonts,
Will, you're not yet sharing your screen.
you said, "Oh, Christ."
Share screen.
Yeah, I've not started sharing it. I just observed. I'm sorry about that. So share screen.
Right.
Sorry. Uh, Okay, so you guys could see the screen, isn't it? All right. So if you go to like fonts google.com, yeah, we could just as a refresher to you guys, we could search for the fonts we want. So my network is not very strong tonight. I'm sorry about that. Right. So we could search for specific font we want, and we could add them to a, a list of fonts that we are going to be working with. So we have pumpkins roboto, and after having all these fonts, right? What I did, we'll be able to have codes to work with here. So, and that is what I did here. So, we are gonna. These are the codes Google Fonts is gonna give to us, right? And we are gonna copy them and um, we're just gonna paste them here. So, with that, we've copied the list, the required fonts. As you can see, we have uh, um, so this font awesome, right? So if you guys go on the internet and check font awesome, it's a framework that allows people to use fonts, right? We use various different types of fonts. So on our navigation menu, we are going to be using the bar and the console icons um, on our of font awesome, right? So let's wait for the page to load. So if I search for so you can see bars, right? So this bar represents the menu for mobile that we are going to be using. To use it in our code, after importing the necessary script, all we have to do is copy this code and be able to use it. The next one we are going to look at is console, right? And if you can see, we have various versions of it. And which one are we going to be using? Uh, sorry, CL. Oh, I saw it just now. It's just I'm not showing up. So let's call it X. Not this one. Sorry. X mark. Okay. Yeah, this one. Circle S mark. So these are the two icons we are going to be using in the code. So let's hop into our code quickly. So so for that we need font awesome, right? So we are going to copy this here, and another thing we are going to need is something called OWL carousel. So if you Google OWL carousel, um, if you go to the GitHub documentation, um, very GitHub documentation, you could see the what the OWL carousel is all about. So It's basically a way for us to create sliders in our code, right? And there are different values we could apply to get different results. So now, if we go to our code, this is the means to, so if you should go to the documentation in the OWL carousel, you would see that if you go under installation, you would see they ask you to link some setting files, and in the CSS, some certain CSS files and some certain JavaScript files. All right. So once you download it, you're gonna have those files, and that is what I did here by linking them. So I'm just gonna copy all this code because it's all what we do, and I'm gonna place it here. All right. So that's basically all the files and things we need. All right. So next, let's start with our navigation bar. So I'm going to explain the navigation bar layout before we start coding it. So this style CSS, I'm going to make changes to style 2, and I'm going to create that file. So create file, right. So we're going to be writing our CSS here, and our HTML, we'll be writing it here. So some of the HTML, so I'll be copying some of the CSS and I'll be explaining those code because I don't want to be writing them all over and over again. So basically, this base CSS gives us things we would. First of all, we set our boxing model. We set root values for the different colors. We set the default HTML. We explained this yesterday. We set these various codes for our body to give fonts and stuff. Then we created some classes, like we make our A tags have this decoration of none and all that stuff. So what's going to happen is I'm just going to copy just these ones initially. I'm just going to copy all these ones. All right, and I'm going to paste them here just so you guys can see. So basically, we set our box model. So this affects every single element on the page. We set default colors for stuff, and then we set the font, the fonts for the body, and the font width and minimum height for it. Now, you may be asked, why did we use Pumpkins as the font, right? The reason is because if you take a look at most of the paragraphs in the webpage, look at most of the paragraphs in the webpage, you can see that they are all Pumpkins, right? If you look at this one here, they are all Pumpkins. So because of that, we'll be using Pumpkins. And if you look at the font width for most of them, it's actually 400. 100. Yeah. So now let's break down layouts. So first things first, I'm going to um, in the index HTML, I'm going to copy my header code and I'm going to explain what this header does after breaking the layout. So let's come here and paste and see how things look like. So if we go to our browser, this is how things look like in our header section, right? So I'm going to comment on some part since we don't need them yet. So this is our navigation. This is how it looks, right? So let's break this into layouts. So first, um, we have this we have this whole navigation as a layout, right? So what's going to happen is that I just want to describe to you guys how we could break this into multiple layouts and code, right? So I'm going to draw like a box here. So this can be represented as what, a div, right? That could be represented as a div, right? And this div we have here is going to be made up of, it's going to be separated into three items, right? Into two parts, rather. We have this as part one, right? So we have, so basically separating them into two parts. I'm just going to put a straight line here like this, right? So this straight line here, uh, right? So this line here represents the two sections of represent the two section uh, of this stuff right here. Okay. So however, it represented these two stuff. So one on the right, one on the left, right? However, um, however, there's kind of like a space between these two items. So if we make this div to display flex, right, and we put justify content to set justify content and space between, then the space between these two can be like this. So this basically will represent our justify content space between. So um, this is going to be an A tag, right? And we're going to be using a UI, UL, and an LI to represent these buttons. So now let's start coding this, right? So we can, as you can see in the HTML, our header was divided into various sections. We have the head. We have this first section, which has to do with the navigation bar, right? And this section have a nav bar, right? Alright, this nav bar, as you can see, is separated into two parts. So this is to represent the logos, and this is to represent the menu items, as you can see here. All these classes are things I named, so I'll be able to style them with the CSS, right? So inside this logo container, we have an A tag that has uh, the word fashion and stuff. And we also have this other one here that is responsible for the menu on how this website is going to look like on mobile. So if we should go back to our expect element screen here, if you'd notice, you can see these two dots here. These two dots here, um, let me zoom in a bit. So if you notice, there's this two dot here. These two dots represent our font awesome icons. But the reason why they aren't displaying is because we've not imported every single thing. So I'm going to import the JavaScript necessary for them, right? And the JavaScript responsible or necessary for these things to work are the following. So first, this is a jQuery that it's part of the things we downloaded from OWL carousel. We have this for the font awesome, those icons we use. This I will explain later. But now we have the carousel. I will explain this one later as well. Or we could just leave it. Um, so you saw that typing something that happens when um, we open the page before. This library is responsible for that. So now if we go to the web page, you could see now our icons are now displaying pop. All right. So with this done, it's time to start styling stuff, right? So if we go to our header, so first things first, we need to import other things we'll be using in the website. So we need to use the typography, we need to use our buttons for the navigation bar, our card, and all that stuff. So we import them little by little, right? So the first thing I'm going to import here, after this style, before this style, here, I'm going to import the, the typography since we need them, since we need it for our page. I'm also going to do the same for button since we need it in our page. So I've imported them here. And next, um, with that, you could already see, if I refresh, you can see the shop now button is already working. But if you look at our shop now button, it has this weird underline, right? It's not part of what we wanted. So if we go to our base CSS, then I can copy this file. So this will make sure that yeah, that line lives. So if I come here and I put it here, so watch this, the line is gone, right? So what's left for us to do now is just to make different styles. So I'm gonna copy some few styles and I'm gonna explain what they are and what they do. So first of all, our header, the entire header, I'm gonna make it display relative, put a white background color, and make the color black. So once we have that, right? Um, oh yeah. So once we have that header, let's look at how our code looks like. Nothing visually has changed, but you could see the fonts and all the underlines are gone. They look more better right now. The next thing we're going to tackle is the navigation menu. So you see this menu section, right? This is what we are going to tackle next, right? So how do we do that? First, I'm going to add all this class to the menu and I'm going to explain what it is. So let's copy all of it. Let's copy all of it and let's paste it in our design. All right. So now look at how our menu looks like. So um, so this is how our menu looks like right now, right? We have the fashion text and then we have these icons. But as you can see, some of the icons are displaying, both icons are displaying. We want to display one at a time, right? So let me just explain all the menu codes little by little. So first, we have this menu container we made to display flex and make the space center in between. So this is basically this stuff I described here. This is like a code describing what it does. Then this is the menu icon itself, right? So making it hidden by default doesn't make it show, right? And then I set the font family and how the text is going to look like when the menu button is clicked and open, right? And whenever the menu button is open, basically basically this class gets activated, right? By default, um, this is a menu styles, but you can't see it. But once this class is added to the menu, it's going to display it. And for that to work, we need the JavaScript. We need to use a little bit of JavaScript. So if you look here, in the JavaScript section, I'm going to copy this JavaScript, right? And I'm going to paste it in our HTML. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to explain the JavaScript code for the menu and show you guys how it works. So if we look now, um, we're not 100% done with our menu. Am I missing something? Okay, so we need some utility classes that we've created. Um, so if you look at our code here, there are some things we added to the code. Um, you can see there's this max width value as a class. There's this d none we added as a class, right? There's that, and we've not created them. So those values are supposed to be created things that was created from the base CSS. So I'm just going to copy all the base CSS code, right? And as you can see, this is the max value here, and this is the daemon, right? So I'm going to paste that in our style CSS so you guys see what happens properly. So I'm just going to paste that. So for those of you who are interested in this code, if you look at the code on your personally, you would understand what's going on here. So this basically does, so this container here, look, this container here, this is our navigation bar. We want a situation whereby it never grows more than this size we have here. There's always should be a space, like as you can see from this, you can see this box around this thing, right? We don't want the navigation bar to go more than that box size. However, it doesn't apply to some elements like this here. It only applies to this one. So that was why we needed this max width class to help us do that. And what it does, it gives a maximum width to our box and then applies an auto margin to left and right. So to make the UI take whatever available space and share it between the left and the right section. So now, with that said, this is how our menu looks, right? We have the menu bar and we have our fashion text, right? However, if you so basically, if we go to our menu code here and start inspecting things, you will see that this is how it looks by default, right? Up to this point, right? So all this code here are basically styling specific things. Like this our container menu here, this our menu here, right? We have an image and a fashion text. So we made this one flex, right? That's what we did here. And we gave it a width and height to we gave width and height to this image, as you can see. So next, the text, the same thing, right? We made the color black, we gave it a font family, we set the font style, then we set the font width. We also set the letter spacing. Uh, we notice the font size and the image width are the same. That is why they have the same height as you can see there. So next, it's the icon. So the icon for the menu, which is this one, we made it pointer. We styled it to be pointer. It's not going to show, but on the desktop screen, it's going to show. So if I should do this and come here like this to create a mobile menu, see, it has changed to a hand. That's what it means by changing it to a pointer. So let's go back to our mobile menu. Then next, this is what I did. These list items, the menu items, what I did is uh, I made their background transparent. I made the case uppercase. I made the cursor pointer, give them padding, and add function field. So these are basically these menu items here. That's what the style does. So now at a specific size, I want the menu to display to look different. So what I did is that 800 pixels. I said the menu item should have a much bigger padding. Next, I styled the menu item. When you hover on them, I made the background color to be black and the text color to be white, right? And for the last element, which is so basically, I'm talking. These are the menu items. So if we hover on them, as you can see, the background changed from black to white, as you can see, right? So this is what that code does. Why this last element here, I did not want this style to be applied. So watch what will happen. If I should comment on this code here, right? And then if I should hover on this menu, if I should hover on this menu, right? Watch what happens. You see, becomes black too. I don't want this behavior. So that is why I styled this specific last element to behave different. So next, I increase the font size. I set the font size of the links, which are basically all these items here. And then, and that is for our menu items, the button as well. So this button that is here, right? I made some adjustment to its padding. So basically, the padding, which we all know, is the space inside of the button. So you can see it's padding, right? Next, as at 700 pixels, right? I changed the behavior of our nav. So 700 pixels. If we go there, you can see the new behavior. The first thing, I made everything display center, right? So what does it mean? So if I should come here, right? And if you look at the nav tag, it's aligned center, right? So if you click on this nav tag here, you can see it's aligned center. If we didn't do this, look what will happen. You see? You see? This is what's going to happen. So aligning it to the center prevents that. Then the next thing was I made this nav container a color. So basically, this box we identified here, this black box we identified here, I made it a column. Before it was row, if you guys remember, initially our nav container flex item and the default flex item value is row. You get. But now we are making a change and we're making it to display column. Now we are making it to display column. So what it means is this will be at the top and this will be at the bottom. So basically, that is what you are seeing happening here, right? So you can see these are the top, these are the bottom. The next, I made the togglers, right, not to display. So these icons, those menu icons, right, I made them not to display. If I don't do this, look what will happen. See, you see, the menu icon tends to show, but we don't want this on the mobile. So that is what this code does. It makes it not display. Next, the menu items, I made them flex. So which is this one here. You can see, I made them flex and I made the align center. So what it does, so what this does is, um, so what it does, so this is the flex. If you don't make it flex, this is how it's going to look. So we made it flex. Align item center is to make all of them be in the same line. As you can see, once it's toggled out, the button moves upward and now it became center. Then visible means we want it to be seen, right? If it's invisible, it's not going to be seen, as you can see like this. So now we make it to be seen. Then we make the max it width initial. Remember, in our mobile menu, initially, we made the max width um, of our menu. Um, we made it 0, and we made it visibility hidden, right? And we write a code whereby whenever this open class is added to this menu class, right? So this menu class, it's going to change the visibility to visible and add the max height to be 100 ph. So with that, that is how we had the situation whereby our menu was being able to click, to display, and not and like to show and hide, as you can see, right? That's how we're able to have that. And if you're wondering how did we, so if you look at this place menu here, you can see it has this class open. So which is this open class we created here, as you can see, right? And it overrides some of the classes we have initially in the navbar, which is visibility and what, and max height, visibility. However, once we click on it, you can see the close button has left, and now all the styles we applied are the ones taking effect. So how we were able to intermediately change those things during click is through JavaScript. So if we go to the JavaScript section, let's look at the JavaScript, right? So What this JavaScript does, it waits for the page to load. I'm using this to get various buttons in the website. And now, what I did was I'm listening to the close icon. Once you click it, this function is going to record. Once you click the open icon, this which is the bar icon, this function is going to record. So you could see this is where I display I change between which of the whether to show this one or this one or this cancelled one here. This is where I tend to do that logic, right? This is where I tend to do that logic. And next, you can see this is where I add the open class when it is being clicked. Also, whenever the user scroll on the page, I add this class called shadow to put like some kind of shadow underneath the UI whenever the user is scrolling. I'll show you guys how that one works when we have enough content to scroll. So now, so now that has explained the mobile menu completely. So in the desktop menu, things it has to change, and these are the things we are changing here. So we made the flex container to column, so we could have the something stack up against one another like this, right? Stack up against one another. Next, we made the togglers, those menu buttons not to display. Also, I made this to be visible. By default, it's not visible, so I made it visible, right? So if you look at if you come here and look at the menu, you can see by default it's invisible. You get, and it has a max height of 0. So now I'm making it visible, and this initial value is to put whatever the browser sets by default. That's what this initial value is. Also, I created a hover effect. So whenever you hover, you see this something gets scales down and have this black background, as you guys can see. So uh, that's the effect uh, of this code right here, right? Oh boy. Next, we have the mobile menu when it is on the desktop mode. So this, you can see um, on the desktop mode, we made it this way, right? And as you can see, this resembles the UI we kind of like drew in our Figma, right? You can see this green background here and this space between these items, which looks exactly like what we have here in our Figma when we are doing the layout planning and all that stuff. So basically, with this, we are able to design our navigation bar. So now let's move to the next part. This next section has to do with with the images and it has to do with the images. So basically, this one's here, right? This one's here. So basically, because we've imported, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment on that code and I'm going to explain the HTML. So this next section here was divided. I'm going to go to the UI and I'm going to explain how the UI translates to the code. So this next section here, just like this one, this section, I'm trying to move this. So unlike just like this one, this section can be divided into two parts, right? Can be divided into two parts. Uh, can be divided into two parts like this. Sorry, I want to increase this height. So it can be divided into two parts like this. You can see, right? So this is the right section. That's what we have here. So right, you can see. And this is the left section. You get, and that's what we have here, left. Now, since this right section, since this left section has this text and all this stuff in it, right? Remember, we've created components for all this, right? We've created components for all this. So all I had to do was to copy that HTML and paste them here. And because we've imported the typography file at the top, all those designs will just work. We don't have to do anything. The same thing with the buttons. So we have our paragraph and we have for the buttons, right? So these buttons, if you understand the way I did this button, I also made this button a flex. So basically, this button is a flex box, right? Is a flex box, and as you can see, it can also be separated at the middle as well, like this, right? So this is how the button looks. So if we go back to our UI, right? So the image, it's like, so I'm going to comment on this right hand part for now. Let's focus on the left. So this is how it works. So since I've already done the typography for these images, I don't have to worry about doing them over and over again anymore, right? It just works. You get. But you can see now, because of the code we put in our HTML, some of our code is hiding at the top, right? So we're going to fix all that really quickly. Then this right hand side has the image, as you can see, and has all these little star icons we see here, as you can see them. So that's what this right hand side have, right? So if we comment on it, that gives us this UI we have right now. So it's going to be a little bit, you can see all the star icons here. You can see all the star icons and you can see this. So let's apply some CSS to this header section, right? So if we go to to this header CSS and let's copy some codes. So we stopped our last copy here. So now, since we are working on the hero section, I'm going to copy all the codes in the hero section and I'm going to explain it. All right, so now let's go back to our CSS and let's paste. All right, so let's explain this hero section code. So this um, this is where the nav ends. This is where the nav ends. The nav code ends, and this is where our hero section starts. So first of all, I made the hero section had the border radius. So basically, this line curve here we see here, that's what is the border radius. So I gave it that. I gave it the background color, which is this color you are seeing right here. And I made the display flex, right? And the flex is because we have items on the left and items on the right. And then I made it justify content center. So center align all the content. Remember, justify content center aligns the content center based on the horizontal axis. So the content at the top here and the top here and at the top here and the top here would be center aligned. So what I did was I gave it a margin top of 12 to put a space, because as you can see in our UI before, there was like this. It was UI was something like this, right? So I put a space around it, right? So this 12M is one responsible for the space. So now that if we scroll, now that we have content to scroll, once we scroll, you can see there's like a shadow that applies to this navigation bar, right? See, the shadow is not there. See, the shadow is here. So this whole thing is done by the JavaScript. So if we go to the JavaScript and we see this code, you see it takes whenever we scroll on the website. So scroll Y checks horizontal scroll. So it checks, it looks how far we have scrolled, and it looks at it's the height of this stuff here is about 50. The scroll height is about 50 high. So whenever we scroll greater than 50, it applies the shadow class to it, right? And uh, whenever the it's less than that value, it removes the shadow class. So now watch. So if we go to this nav section, you can see there's now a new class called what? Nav shadow. But when we scroll down a bit, watch, that nav shadow will remove. You see, the class is no longer there. When we scroll up a bit again, see, the class comes up. So that's the shadow we're talking about. Next thing I want to explain, I've explained all this text yesterday. That has to do with the that has to do with um, the typography file, right? You can go into the code and see how it works. So let's talk about this text that is changing and all that stuff, right? There's this library I used, this JavaScript library I used called, the library is called um, typed, right? Typed. So this library allows you to type things, to allow content to be typed in the UI. So if we go back to our JavaScript file, this is how we implement the library. So we put the list of items we want to type and identify the part of the UI that we want to type. So if you look at this UI, if you look at this content that we are typing on here, so look, the first one we are typing has the ID of type intro text 1. The second one has the ID intro text 2. So the typed content here, this code, basically what it does, it replaces whatever is in this hero text 1 with all these things here, and replace with hero text 2 with all these things here. So that is how the type to work, right? So that's how you see this nice typing stuff. So let's go back to our CSS and let's look at other of the header codes. So what I did now was that at 700 pixels, I wanted the margin top to be more. And the reason is because our menu became bigger, right? So if you go to 700 pixels and above, you see the menu here, this menu became way bigger, isn't it? So that was why I needed more top, more space here. Okay. So that's the reason for this code. Then the same thing the for when it's over 1044 pixels. 1044 pixels, I make it smaller because see the menu is not as it's slightly bigger than how it was in the mobile, but it's not as big as it is in what in the what is it called? It's not as big as what it is uh, uh, in the tablet view. So that's what that code does. Then this hero left is basically uh, this hero left basically, if you look here, right, you could see there's like this space in orange, right? So that space in orange, I'm doing it with this, right? I'm doing it with this. And I put a margin bottom, right? Then this is for these buttons here, right? So I made them display flex, right? And also um, added factors that allows one to grow and the other one to remain fixed. So basically, this button here can grow, but this one size is always fixed. So yeah, so that is what all this code here does, right? Then next, by default, this right side doesn't show because on mobile, look, on mobile, you can't see the image, right? So by default, the right side doesn't show. But as at 1,000 pixels, so as at 1,000 pixels, right? I want this right hand side to show. So that was why I made, first of all, I made it in a way that the left hand side does what? Does reduce in size. So basically, this image takes more real estate compared to this left hand side. So this is what this code does here. And you can see we made the position relative, the display initial. So why we use initial is like the initial value, the default value that was given. And then we made this right hand side grow, and I gave it a flex basis of what? Of 60 pixels, which is practically larger than this one. Next, we we have the promotion image. So the promotion image, I made it display. The reason why I gave this right side relative is because I want the image inside the this image. If you notice, this image is inside the This image is inside the right hand side. Get? So I want this image to be relative to be absolute. When we made this absolute, I don't want the image to be absolute here. I want the image to be absolute here. So that is why I made this place display ability. So now I made the bottom 0. That is why the image, you can see, is like in the ending here, right? And then I applied this animation left to right. So this animation left to right, what it does is basically it scales the image, right? It scales the image, right, uh, to the left, right, and it scales the image. Uh, 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 it scales down the image, right, and it moves it um, to the 5% horizontally and 5% vertically, right. Then, then later, after during the period of 1 second, what happens is it scales this thing upwards to like 1, which is the original size, and moves it back to its original position. So that is why you see the image comes down and goes up. That's basically what it does. Now, if you want to have a little bit of fun, like rotating the image a little bit, yeah, you can have rotate here. Yeah, you can say rotate theory. You can say we should rotate uh, minus, let's say minus 5 d eg, get, and then and then as at this point we want it to come back to 0, right? So 0 d e g. So look at what's going to happen to our design right here. You see how it curves, right? You see how it curves, right? If I make this thing, let's say I make it to go to like let's say 3 degrees, watch what's going to happen. You see it curves in here, it comes in, it curves in. You get this curve isn't really showing, so let's just make it 5 to make the curve, or let's just make it 10 so that you can see how the curve works. So so you see it, right? So it becomes like this weekly sign, right? You get. But when you are doing things like this, as you can see, our navigation bar now is moving. And the reason is because this animation is creating more space in our UI, that is more space to our UI. It's adding more spaces to our UI. So in order to fix that, we need to change the width of the of this image to be able to make sure things doesn't become shaky, right? So if we look at the hero right, so let's look at hero right. Look at this hero right promotion image. So if I reduce it to like let's say 80%, right? So now the image now will become smaller. You see this? Let's refresh. So you see the image has become smaller, but our menu doesn't shake anymore, right? And I can do something like so we can keep messing with this value to get we can keep messing with this value to get it to look the way we want, right? So if you put it at 90, for example, it's going to be bigger, but it still doesn't affect the menu yet. So this is like a sweet spot, as you can see, with this new design we've added. So I just wanted to make you see how the animation looks like, right? But the reason why I didn't rotate it initially was because the image doesn't have like isn't it like a complete image. So and I don't want to add complications to it. So I felt this rotation was way better, and that was why I used it. So with this, as you can see, as at 1000 pixels, we are doing all these things. So the next thing was the star, the star. So these star icons we see here, you get that they are rotating. What I did was I styled them. I made some display. I positioned all the stars some top, some left, some right, some bottom. Get the point. I positioned everything. So this is what this code is doing here, right? And now, if you notice, I added the animation rotate to this star, and that can be found at the top. So if we go up a bit, you see we've created the rotate keyframe. You can see we created it earlier, right? So basically it just makes our image turn round. Then finally, we have this hero left, which is basically the space in this left hand side. As at 1044 pixels, I want to readjust that space. You see? So I readjusted the space. So that is how we made this design. Finally, let's just look at the carousel and we'll stop here today. But I hope with this explanation, you guys will be able to get how you can make how the components work and how you could use the design. And you can also study the code, reach out to us at the Discord to ask any question if you have. But this carousel, if we go to the OWL carousel library, right? If you want to make use of this carousel, if you can see, they said you're going to have a div called OWL carousel. Then the items you want to display or the content you want to display, you're going to put them inside. And that is what we did. We have a div called OWL carousel, and then we have the list of items we want to put inside, as you can see. These people use div to represent the O carousel, but I use UL, as you can see, right? And they use div here, but I also use li. So it doesn't really matter. It's just as long as there's the OWL carousel class on top, and then we have the list of items underneath. Everything works fine. So all these are just the images of the partners we have. Now this partner style, let's see the code for this partner, right? So the partners code is very simple. What we did was we made now if you look at the website right now, right? So you can see this is how things look, right? So the partners, OWL Carousel practically did this for us, but we need that yellow background, and we need to do like some other stuff, right? And we need to size up this image properly, right? So this is what this partners code does. So it made the list type display none. It placed a padding at the top left, at the top. This basically means top. This means left and right. Then this means bottom. So with that, please excuse me. All right. So sorry about that. I was having a call, and I had to quickly respond to it. So with that, we put padding top 6, left and right 2, then bottom 4, and we put a margin top, and we made the background color yellow. And these images, we gave all these images a certain height and use object fit to ensure that the image crops in to fit. And with all this code here, when applied to our style, when we apply it now to our code here, our this section looks like this. So as you can see, our partner sessions now look like this. So the O carousel library was responsible for all this. So let's just quickly look at the O carousel library code, right? So if you look at the code here, what it does is saying we want it to autoplay, in the sense that we want it to be moving by itself. And we want this movement to continue. Sorry, we want it to wait 500 milliseconds rather before it starts moving. You understand? We want to make 500 milliseconds before it starts moving. Then this one says we want this movement to happen by itself. So it should start on its own. You get. Now this loop means the movement should never stop. Now this navigation menu means that it's asking us if we want. So if we go to the demos and we click on basic, for example, if you look here, you can see this menu items here and all these dots. So this nav is responsible for this. You understand? So I said I don't want it. That's why I said what? False. So it's not there. So now what this responsive means how many items you want to display based on the screen size. As at 0 pixels to 599 pixels, I said I want to display two items. That is why on mobile view, look, only two items show at a time. You see, just two items show at a time. However, on 600 pixels and above, so if we increase it to like 600, 700 pixels, you see three items show at a time. And that is what this thing does here. Three items show. Then as at 1000 pixels, which is this, which is this, five items show at a time, which is what you can see here. So basically, this is how I designed the I was able to design stuff. So I hope with this you guys could have been able to see how I know the coding was like rushed, but you guys have the code base and you can keep checking for stuff and all that to see how things happen. And if you have questions regarding the code base, you can always reach out on Discord. I'll be able to answer you guys. So this is where we'll stop for today's class. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Our time is fast spent anyway, but you can ask questions and I'll be able to answer your questions. I'll see how much I can answer rather. So what are your questions? Okay, he said, does the this carousel comes with JS code? Yeah, they do. They do. So it's next week you guys will start learning JavaScript. So some of those JavaScript code you see there later is going to make sense to you guys after you learn it. Yes, the JavaScript code you need to write or the JavaScript that are needed for the O carousel to work comes with the O carousel library. Next question. He said, "What's this step?" I don't understand that question. Splash, splash boy. Oh, sorry, splash bio. I don't really understand that question. So please, where is the code base? I sent it. I've sent it to uh, uh, Amaka. She'll get it to you guys. In case you guys don't have it. So it says, what was your order of implementation when you started from scratch in terms of JS, CSS, HTML? Okay, so what I normally do, I write my HTML first. And when I write my HTML, I don't know the classes I would use. I don't know things that I would do, right? Then after I write my HTML, when I write the HTML, I start from mobile design, the smallest screen, and I design a section completely to the desktop screen, right? That's why in my code base you can see. So let me just quickly share my screen. Um, so that's why in this code base, if you take a look in my code base, if you take a look at my code base, for example, when we talked about nav, you could see that all the code you saw here all has to do with nav, all has to do with nav. You understand? All, nothing, everything was all under nav, not until we got to this what to this hero section. So that's how I work. I'll start. If I want to design a specific section, I'll start designing the section from the mobile view all the way to the desktop view. I'll write the CSS. Then if there are any necessary animations in the CSS, then I'll apply that animation. Then finally, I'll end with JavaScript. So that's the order at which I code my stuff. Next question. Next question. Okay, so it seems that we don't have any other question. Thank you very much. For those who want the code base, please reach out to Discord. You'll get the code base. Thank you very much. I have to leave now. I have another meeting to attend.
All right. Thank you so much, Will. So, guys, I dropped the code base yesterday on Discord and on WhatsApp, so you can go ahead and check it. All right. Then, if you want to rewatch the class, please go on YouTube. All our classes are recorded and they're on YouTube, so you can go back and replay anyone you want to. So that'll be all for tonight. Good night, guys.